Hey from the farm, everyone. I had my wisdom teeth out yesterday, so I am still a bit of a swollen chipmunk, and if I'm talking funny, that's why. I wanted to give you the update on the farm, and today we're also going to be talking about some mistakes that I made in planting our prairie and how I'm kind of fixing those mistakes now this fall. It's also, we're under frost warning, so I'm trying to harvest as many flowers as possible today, and we're doing some demo. Stay tuned for today's riveting demo panic flower harvest episode. All right, so you can see behind me that in our last video, our farm tour, we were talking about that we were doing demo of this back concrete slab, and we have done that, and boy, it has really changed the space, and I cannot wait to lay out our new beds and to plan this area. That'll be a project that we're going to be hitting next spring, but for now you can see how much concrete we removed. So this whole area was a slab here, we had a sidewalk here. This all was concrete all the way over this whole space. And so losing that concrete does two things. It's going to let us expand our house here. So we're putting a mudroom on. I'm going to show you our mudroom in a second so you can see why I need to do a mudroom. And it also is going to give us more planting space. And as a gardener, who doesn't love more planting space? First, let's check out my mudroom so you understand what we are doing here. All right, let's pop on in here and I'm going to show you the quick tour. So this is our current mudroom, and we've moved everything out. It's a mess in here right now so that we can do our demolition, but you can see that we are really limited on space here. And this is where we come in and out all the time from the farm. And this is our shoe rack here. So no one ever puts their shoes on the shoe rack and boots don't fit on it. We have nowhere to really hang coats. There's just no space. If we put one here, you run into it as you come up and down the stairs. So it's just really dangerous also because you come right in and there's steps here. We've had our kids fall all the way down these stairs. And then there's this lovely situation here. I'm not sure why. This house was actually built in the 20s as a basement home. And so along with that comes some interesting little quirks, such as this little ledge here, this ceiling here. So we always bonk our heads here, our shoulders here. It's just not the best. So we really desperately need a mudroom, and that was where this project all started. So really excited to have that mudroom coming in. It's going to attach to a new garage and workshop over here. So now what I'm working on today is, because we're trying to reuse as many materials as possible in this house addition, what we are doing is removing this wall. So when they built this house, and this is part of why we're doing this project, we're moving the garage back to where it used to be. So the garage on this house used to be here. You can see this was the back wall, and this was a wall here, and this was the interior of the garage. And then actually the entrance to the house used to be there, going straight down to the basement. So what we have here is the part of the old original wall. So you can actually see where it changes. This used to be the interior of the garage, and then it changes to the exterior brick because this used to be an interior wall. So anyway, what we are doing is, part of this addition, we're going to have a wall that we're going to try to reuse the brick, but this brick is very hard to match because most old bricks are. And so what we're doing is we're pushing down this wall today, chipping off all this masonry, and reusing these bricks. And yeah, no, don't do this project in sandals. We're really trying to reuse as many materials as we can. Lights we're reusing, cabinets we're reusing, just trying to be as sustainably minded about it as we can. And whether we use these for a wall or even for pathways, these old bricks are what we also used in my greenhouse floor for passive winter heat, because the brick retains heat during the day, and at night it releases that heat into the greenhouse space, so it helps heat our greenhouse having a brick floor. But what I really wanted to show you today was one of our prairie areas. So if you watched our farm tour, you might know that we have been working on establishing pocket prairies here throughout the farm, little spaces of prairie meadow areas throughout the farm that I can incorporate native plants into. And by bringing those native plants in, it helps with a few things. It helps us bring in beneficials, which means we don't have to use pesticides because we rely on the beneficial insects. And it also helps to provide habitat and feed for the birds, especially over the winter. So the first mistake that I made when I was planting this pocket prairie was I was not patient. And this is always a problem that I have as a gardener, is I tend to not have the patience. And patience is especially key with these native plants. These native plants just take time to establish. We have to be patient with them. And so what happened was this spring, I lost my patience. I thought that stuff was not going to come up. We had some warm season grasses in here like our blue grama, and I just assumed that they were not going to come up because they hadn't yet. And so I reseeded, and I should not have used this seed, but I did, and it was a mistake. I used buffalo grass. Buffalo grass is a really great native grass. If you are looking for something that's going to duplicate grass like a lawn, but you don't have to mow it and it's drought tolerant, buffalo grass is wonderful, but in a meadow, it can be a problem. So I've already gone through and pulled a lot of the buffalo grass out, and you can see that's why we have a fair amount of gaps here in the meadow, and that's what I'm going to be filling in today. Here are some echinacea. You can see they leave these really great seed pods for the birds in the winter, and the finches love these. Over here we have another one of our little pocket prairies. This one is more heavily focused on grasses. We have prairie drop seed in here. We have some more big blue stem and some switch grasses. And over in here, this prairie area we have some rudbeckia over here, some coreopsis, and mostly in here, side oats grama. So this here is side oats grama, which is another really great native grass. And you can see why the birds use this as habitat. There's tons of forage in here for them, and also spots for them to hide down in here. So really important for creating bird habitat is having these great tall grasses that birds can hide in. And I also love how they look in the fall. But let's take a look at the buffalo grass. So here's some that I found and pulled out today. So here's the problem with buffalo grass in a meadow situation. Now, if we're using it again in a lawn type situation, it's great, but you can see what it does is it shoots off these stolons, kind of similar to Bermuda grass. And as it does this, it grows and creeps along the ground. So it can really spread and take over an area. Again, this is great. If you're looking for a grass that's going to spread and look like a lawn and be low water needs, this is nice and soft. I like it for that purpose. But what we were finding was it's choking out a lot of the plants that we had planted in here. So it's becoming too heavily grass dominated. And I wanted really more wildflowers in this area. So we have these echinacea. They are really nice, healthy looking echinacea. Now, typically I like to grow them from seed, but we were able to get these from a native nursery and they look really nice and healthy. So we're going ahead and wetting these, planting them in now. It is October 4th, and getting them into the ground. We're about a week, maybe 2 weeks before our first frost, but these will survive frost. They'll be fine. We're gonna give them a good, nice water here, and they'll have time to establish before our winter hits. So fall can be a really great time to start planting some of these natives. Our falls are usually really dry, so I am making sure to water my planting holes as well as the plants before I put them in the ground. We've usually shut off our water for the most part by now. And so by watering these holes, we're making sure that the plant will have plenty of access to water as the roots are establishing. Grab a plant. Now, these are really pretty good looking. They're not overly root bound at all. So we're just gonna loosen them gently. And then I'll pop it into my watered hole here and fill in with soil. You can see even just as I gently press this down, there's still some water. So I don't need to re-water this. I just water the hole once and then we're good. We're gonna go head out and harvest some flowers. Roosevelt, don't eat the willow. Come in. Don't ignore me. So here in the garden, we've got our cover crop growing in. So there's tons of stuff over here that he can eat, including buckwheat, and we've got some oats and some hairy veg. They're also nibbling down kind of the last of the strawberries here, which we have planted here with our onions. Look at this monster onion, it's huge. So this is how we terminate these cover crops is usually we just let the sheep eat them down, but these also happen to be winter killing cover crops. So we've got buckwheat and we have oats, and those will both winter kill here in my zone. So zone 5-6, they winter kill once we get a hard freeze on the ground. And in the meantime, as the sheep kind of walk through here, you can see there's little bits of their manure, their poop, which the great thing about sheep poop is that it's dry and hard, so it's not like wet pieces like, you know, horse poop. This is very dry and pelletized, which makes it really easy to use in the garden, and it's also not messy or really that stinky. If you don't have sheep and you want to do some cover crop, you can also terminate it. It depends on the crop, and we do have information about this in our regenerative gardening course, but there are other cover crops that you can just terminate either by winter kill, like some of these ones, or that you can just weed whack down. You can hit with a mower as long as you do it at the right stage. So there's lots of different ways to break down cover crops that don't include naughty sheep. Okay, so because we're under frost warning, I'm going to start with the things that are sensitive to frost, like our dahlias and our zinnias. And I also have over here, this was an experiment that we did this year. If you've been following, you know that we grew some stock. It's the stock that Cora ran over with her tractor, the seedling table. And so this is a fall planted stock. So we planted this, we started it from seed in about mid-June, and then we planted it out about 6 weeks, 4-6 weeks after we planted it from seed. And here we are in October, and this is frost tolerant. So stock actually really likes the cold. So now that we're here in October, it's getting the cool nights that it needs to help stimulate blooms. So I'm definitely going to do stock next year, and I'm going to start some in June. Now let's just take a quick look at all of these. So I'm going to come in and pick some of these, and some of them we're actually leaving for seed production. Roosevelt, if you're going to break the dahlia, then eat it. Don't you? Nah. You stinker. They love dahlias. They leave a lot of stuff alone, but they like the dahlias, and they like roses too. So a lot of these I'm actually going to leave for the seeds. So I'm going to let the seeds mature on the plant. I don't want to harvest them too early. You can harvest them green, but I really prefer to let them age on the plant and stay on the plant as long as possible. Here we have Oklahoma salmon, zinnias, which have so many layers, which is why these ones are really neat. Here we have Bennery white. So this is the closest thing I found to a white. And you can see there's a ton of seeds developing here. So as I pull this apart, the seeds are down here attached to where the petals would have been. So here is a green, immature zinnia seed here. So I like to leave them on the plant until they get brown. It's just my preference. I know some people do harvest them green, I just don't. We have a mix, the Queenie Lime mix down here. So this looks like a Queen Lime peach, Queen Lime orange. I love the Queenie Lime series of zinnias. So we'll go ahead and pick some of these. These are the Queen Lime peach as well, which to me, they are peachy, and some of them are more peachy than others. Like this one is definitely more peachy. And then over here we have this straight Queen Red Lime, which is my favorite zinnia. It's kind of this dusty, old-fashioned looking zinnia color. And there's probably tons of seeds in this zinnia head. So we'll start to pull these. And I usually wait until after frost myself to do this. So as we're cutting the zinnias, there's something that we want to do, which is called the wiggle test. And this is just a test to see if they're mature. So you can see, let's just cut this one and use it as an example. Here we have one that when I wiggle it about 4 or 5 inches down the stem, there's a lot of wiggle back and forth with the head of the zinnia. That means it's not ready to harvest yet. If we cut this one, it's going to wilt in the vase. So what we want to do is find one that's nice and stiff, so you can see when I do that same wiggle test with this one, how it stays nice and upright. So this one is ready to cut, strip most of the leaves. Now when we're cutting, again, we want to make sure we're cutting nice and deeply into the plant, especially with zinnias, because it helps keep them a little bit more aerated. So if we cut nice and long, even if we're not going to use all that stem length, it's just good practice, especially with these cut and come again flowers. Well, here's an interesting little variety. We are also going to harvest the dahlias because these are another one that unfortunately will go once we get frost. Right now the bees, we're just leaving them. The bees are enjoying the last dahlias of the season. These ones here, they get really tall. These are one-eyed Jill. And dahlia seeds you can harvest as well. Now I don't save my own dahlia seed. You can. Again, you want to let them go to seed and age on the plant. So you'd need to leave them to go to seed. If you don't leave them to go to seed, then you won't have any seed to harvest. If you save the seed, remember that they won't be true to the parent dahlia. So let's say that I love this Jowie Winnie, the color of it. So I want to save the seed. If I save the seed from these and plant them, they will be different. They might have some similar characteristics, maybe a similar color, but they won't be the same plant. When I'm harvesting these dahlias, I am always cutting long, especially when the plants are young. And that's because we want to encourage these longer stems. Now, some of this just comes down to variety. You can see this is a different variety, say, than these ones here, and that's why these ones are so much taller and these ones are shorter, but we can still cut to encourage stem length. And so that's especially true when these plants are just starting to bloom for the first time. We want to make sure that we are cutting nice and deeply into the plant. Now this one, you can see this dahlia is actually starting to fade. The petals on the back are starting to brown. So I'm going to go ahead and deadhead this one, and I'll use what's coming up next, which is actually at a better stage to harvest. You can see that this one is a little bit tighter here in the petals. It's totally fine that it's not fully open. Now dahlias we do want to cut at least mostly open, but they'll last a little bit longer if you can catch them toward the side of not being totally open all the way. So I'd say about 75% open is what we want to shoot for when we're cutting these dahlias. So you can see I'm cutting fairly deeply here into the stem. Even if I'm not going to use that full stem length, I'm still going to cut them pretty nice and long. And that way the next blooms will also have long stems. Oh, you naughty, naughty boys. Did you eat all of my... You ate all of my dahlias. And the roses. And my pumpkin. Sirs, you are in big trouble. You are in big trouble, sir. And you pooped. You pooped in my barn. Yeah, you better go. So we harvested all of our flowers and reharvested them thanks to the boys eating a lot of them. I have some Roseanne Brown, I have some Voyage Apricot, Lysianthus, zinnias, and some dahlias in kind of all these orangey textures. I'm gonna go ahead and make a centerpiece out of these. I'm gonna speed it up for the purposes of this video, but we have a course coming out that teaches all about how we do this. But first I wanna show you what we do for the support for our centerpiece. Because we don't use floral foam, which is a really toxic product, it's just not good for the environment in any way, shape, or form. It's made with formaldehyde, and it also releases microplastics into the water supply, because when florists hydrate floral foam, they put the floral foam in the water, and it's that kind of green stuff you can stick your finger in. And what happens is when florists hydrate it in the water, they dump out the bucket that they used to hydrate the foam, and in there is a ton of microplastics from the foam. So it's really terrible. It's not biodegradable. It's a single-use product. So instead we use something really simple. I just grab whatever vase I'm going to be using. I have this white one here today, and then some chicken wire. If you don't want your chicken wire to rust, you can use a vinyl-coated chicken wire, and you can get that online. This is just the regular 1-inch chicken wire from the hardware store. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little ball, and I'm actually going to put 2 layers of chicken wire in because I like to have an extra secure base. Yes, Court. What? Will you put this in a vase? You want me to put it in a vase? Yeah, let's get you a vase. So I like to do a double layer of chicken wire, and so it depends on the size of the vase. I just have 2 scrap pieces here. So you can either cut 1 long piece so that you can fold it in half and then layer it into your vase, or you can use scraps. So that's what I've done here. I just have 2 end pieces left over. So I'm going to ball it up, and I like to have multiple layers of the chicken wire because if you just have 1 layer across the top, so sometimes you'll see like a tape mesh over the top, and that can work if you have really light flowers. But with a lot of these heavier flowers like zinnias and dahlias, if they get too top heavy and you stick them in the vase, they'll flop over if they don't have a bottom in place to help give them a little bit of structure. So I've just balled up my chicken wire here into my vase. You can see it's stuck in there pretty well, but I can tape it if I want a little extra security. So I have this tape. This is Oasis tape, and it's just waterproof. And I'm just gonna take my tape, and I'm gonna create a little grid here. in the top. So I just have my tape holding my chickenware in place, and that way it won't pull up and out of the vase as I fill it with flowers. Stay tuned for more exciting developments here with Reno and prepping the farm for winter. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow. It really means a lot to us here at the farm. See you guys around here soon.